Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping to tell you in this video that it's coming home, well and truly. But we just lost 1-0 to Iceland, beating Bosnia in the first game 3-0, which wasn't a bad result at all. Second half produced some better performances, but forever how good that second half performance was in that first game. Second half performance a couple of nights ago against Iceland was so bad. So bad. And I think Gareth Southgate would have found out a lot about this group of players, not in a good way, unfortunately. And I think the main issue that we can all see is the back and how he's going to line up defensively, especially in the full-back area. John Stones went off with what looked like it could have been a knock at half-time. Whether it was just a precaution or there's maybe something a bit more to it, I don't know. But that's a bad thing. We cannot have him not being available for the first game because the centre-back depth behind him is not the best. We've got a couple good centre-back, and I think Southgate will really live to regret the omission of Jared Branthwaite. I can't believe, once Maguire wasn't available for selection, that he didn't get in the squad, but that's just me. I'm going to go on this England team in possession first, as always. So England's main attacking shape is to go three at the back in possession, so one full-back pushes forward and another one drops in. Luke Shaw's been selected for the squad, but he hasn't played in any of the friendly games, hasn't played for United since like February or whenever it was, and he's had a completely disrupted season through injury anyway, so who knows how much he can really be relied on. But typically you get Kyle Walker tucking in to form the back three, the left winger pushing into the left half space. Now over the years that's been Raheem Sterling. Hopefully this year we'll see more of Phil Foden in that role, and Luke Shaw attacks the left flank. He's experimented with James Maddison and Jack Grealish, both of which who aren't in the squad. Left himself a little bit weak on that left-hand side in terms of quality depth. Ebi Eze has come in and he's played that left-hand side that comes inside, and he did very well in the Bosnia game. But it gives Luke Shaw the space and permission to attack down this left flank, operating as a left winger essentially. Now, can't imagine Luke Shaw will be fit to at least start the tournament. Who knows how he looks as the tournament goes on. But in the warm-up games, he's gone Kieran Trippier, which hasn't worked amazingly for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't have that running power on the left-hand side that Luke Shaw does, where Luke Shaw will combine with the left winger with the ball, and he'll overlap down here to get to the byline to pull crosses back to the edge of the box that a Harry Kane, that a Phil Foden can attack from. Kieran Trippier doesn't have that off-the-ball running ability. He generally tends to stay a bit deeper where he can cross the ball, obviously with the understanding that usually when he's crossing the ball he's crossing it on this side on his right foot, but he doesn't overlap necessarily. He's a crosser from this area that can get a good whip and a good curl into the centre of the box, a good whip cross, if we're going by Football Manager terms. The issue is that because he's on the side of his weaker foot, he's got propensity to turn inside onto his right and look inside. And where this player, and we'll say it's Foden for now just for simplicity, would have been tasked with staying in this position to receive the ball here, maybe commit a centre-back towards him that Kane could attack, that could pull this centre-back across, that then the starting attacking midfielder, let's say that's Jude Bellingham, who was a fantastic player at attacking space, is lost now. But because of Kieran Trippier making this move inside, it pushes the left winger into this position to take up that role as Trippier moves inside. And we saw it a lot, to be fair, across both games. When he did push forward, he did end up inverted into the left half space role, which I don't think is a terrible idea. I don't think that's a position he'd be useless in. But it just feels like we've got so many good central players coming off of the left that to have Kieran Trippier playing that role does lessen our quality a bit. Maybe if you had him into this position inverted alongside the centre midfielder, which he has done a few times for Newcastle this season, and you had a more attacking left centre midfielder or right centre midfielder, or maybe it is Rice and he pushes forward into this position to offer a bit of balance. But then it means that you'll probably start an Anthony Gordon on this left wing position because he's the only player on that side that can provide natural width from the wings. You think Foden, you think Eze, even Palmer if he was to play out there, they're all going to come inside into the half space. That's how they naturally play. And it should be said with Eze, to be fair, that he did play the wide role and the inside role very well against Bosnia. Where Kieran Trippier would come into, he'd take the opposite role and he was dangerous throughout. But I feel like to get the best out of Eze, you want him in that central area, in tight, compact spaces, running at players. Not hamstrung out on the left where he's got to run into the block and defenders can give him a yard or two because they've got the protection of defenders behind them. So it's a massive issue on that left-hand side that Southgate needs to work out really quickly ahead of that first game on Sunday. And there were times, especially in the second half against Iceland, where because I think he was getting a bit fed up of the Kieran Trippier issue in this position, if I just move him back. Well, you saw Kieran Trippier playing the left centre-back role in possession, the left centre-back coming into this position in the centre, and the right centre-back moving here, pushing Kyle Walker in. The attacking midfielder moving over to the left half space. Right winger, that was Cole Palmer, who is, again, a lot more natural in the half space than he is out wide, so Kyle Walker could attack down this right-hand side. Couple issues, and we saw it for the goal that Iceland scored against us. We don't have a top-level right centre-back to defend against the transition. The left winger, can't remember what his name is, someone's son for Iceland, getting exposed down this channel 1v1 against John Stones, and was able to turn inside and get a shot away that was put into the bottom corner. And again, this is an issue on that right-hand side, because if you want Kyle Walker in the team, you want him to play in the right centre-back in possession to defend against the top-level left wingers that we'll be playing against in Europe. Gone over it before in videos about how there's Rafael Leao, there's Kylian Mbappe. Yeah, Musiala generally plays off the left, although he hasn't really been for Germany, but that's another issue. See my video a few days ago for information on that. And Kyle Walker staying back to provide the wide centre-back option means he can protect against that transitional threat. Pushing up into this position here as the right wing-back, right winger, doesn't get the best out of his qualities. He's not an amazing crosser of the ball, and he is starting to lose that yard of pace that makes him an effective overlapper. And he doesn't have the greatest relationship with the player that would be coming inside, whether that will be Bukayo Saka, who you think will be starting on that right wing position, who's more comfortable as that 1v1 winger, with Kyle Walker only providing an overlap ability for support to drag a marker away, meaning Saka can move inside. But Saka's never really been great at starting from the half space position. Usually from starting out wide to go inside is where he's best at. Can Kyle Walker play that role? Who knows? But could we see Trent Alexander-Arnold play in this right-back position to allow maybe Joe Gomez to play at left-back to tuck in here? John Stones, assuming his fitness is at the requisite level at left centre-back, to tuck into the middle. And right centre-back, maybe Gahey or Dunk, for example, who could play in the left centre-back role as that main aerial threat. And John Stones moved further out wide to be able to use his great passing ability to switch the play over to the left-hand side. The only issue is with that is then if Phil Foden ends up playing in this position, you're not getting the best out of him. The only real width provider we have from left wing is Anthony Gordon, who could play that role and stretch the team on the opposite side, which isn't a bad option. I wouldn't be completely against Anthony Gordon starting, but then you're back into a position of Phil Foden. Where does he play? Does he then play the right winger? And Saka's dropped because he's more comfortable coming inside into this position, and this would suit Phil Foden a little bit more with Jude Bellingham playing in the 10. There's so many issues with balance, and that's my biggest headache with this England squad. Is a lot of the international teams I've covered have a style that is complemented by the individuals they have available, and they have clearly defined roles that certain players need to step into. With England, we don't necessarily have a clear idea of what we want from a position. We just have tons of options, especially in those attacking areas. And while that's a good problem to have, it's also a bad problem to have, because listen to people speak, and sometimes it's like, right, I want a midfield of Rice, Bellingham, Foden, I want Palmer, Saka on the wings, but how does that work? Who's supplying the width? What fullback is joining in to create that idea that these players can all attack centrally, which is what all of them like to do? You're hampering Foden by playing him out wide. You're hampering Palmer by keeping him out wide. And what's the point of playing players when they're not playing the roles that has made them so good at club level? And that's where Southgate in tournaments previously has done really well at. He's not forced a square peg into a round hole, even if it's been an unpopular decision. He's played players in their ideal position, and it's always worked tactically. This time I think he's complicated it too much for himself, and you see sometimes with the way the ball moves between the 10s and the fullback, there really lacks a level of identity and philosophy with the way they're playing. Like, there's just no real chemistry, it looks like, for a team that's been so settled and a manager that's been so consistent. That's an issue. Even saw Kane. I thought Kane dropped so much deeper than he usually does for England in that Iceland game, alongside the midfielders, which in a sense I like, because we have pace. Let's say if Saka's playing in the right wing position, he can attack down this opposite side if Kane was to switch to play, and we know obviously his passing ability is world class. Anthony Gordon or whoever down the left wing. Then you have Jude Bellingham or Phil Foden, who have the propensity to make runs in behind, and I do think that's a massive quality that Southgate's trying to bring to this side, is his ability to control possession in those attacking thirds. As I was speaking about before, getting the ball to the attacking midfielder to commit defenders that they could then play the ball into behind. We're not blessed with exceptional crosses, so it's attacking through the centre areas that makes it big, which is why I also am not sure about that partnering centre midfield role for Rice. Trent Alexander-Arnold for me is the option, but I've just spoke about him at right back. But if it's not Trent, it's got to be Kobbie Mainoo, because with Rice and with Conor Gallagher, who would be the only alternate option. I know we have Adam Wharton, but I just don't see him starting this tournament. I think it's too soon. But with Gallagher and Rice, you don't have players that are comfortable taking the ball off of their defenders on the half turn to then spread the ball up the pitch. And that is huge to a possession-based side. And then, as a result, it will just mean that John Stones is forcing the ball out long and wide to the wingers or to Harry Kane, and we just get turned over quickly. And it just adds to the confusion that this team is going through right now. But I feel like I've covered it all in possession. I'm going to go out of possession. Okay, so England do try and counter-press when they lose the ball from these positions. The issue is we do lack pace in that defensive line. And we saw it for the goal for Iceland the other night, where they were caught on the break, and John Stones and Mark Gahey, who to be fair does have good recovery pace, but they weren't attacking down that side. And when he's the only one with natural pace in that back line, he can't do everyone's running. And so that ball over the top, let's say if it's a Kylian Mbappe running in behind, Leao, as I've just said, I know I keep going to those left wingers, but they're just the easier ones to go to because they'll be main attacking threats. That side will get cut, and if we're going to start pushing Kyle Walker forward, he's not going to be able to make that constant levels of recovery run back. And so the right centre-back position for me is as crucial as any other position on this football pitch, because John Stones, as much as he has qualities technically, is not the best in terms of a complete centre-back role. He's not a great one-on-one defender, can get caught, doesn't read situations as well as he should. So, as much as I think England do try and enact a counter-pressing style, it's not going to be effective in top teams, which Southgate has always done well with, to be fair. He's always managed those occasions really well. If anything, he sits a little bit too deep, but I think with this team available, it could be crucial to how we're going to play. And when England defend, they defend in a 4-2-3-1 shape that will try and press with the front four. Not an aggressive press by any means. They'll generally stand off players in zone or mark in between situations. So let's say the left winger coming into this guy here will maybe be in between the midfielder and the wide centre-back. The attacker midfielder in between midfielders, the right winger in between midfielder and wide centre-back. You get my point. Kane isn't an amazing presser off the ball, so he won't launch into press. We have a few passive pressers in that front line. It's not aggressive, not a spring in their step. And as a result, it does leave this space here between fullback and winger free. And it can leave Rice and Mainoo a bit isolated, or whoever plays in that right centre midfield position. So that if a player pulls off into this position here, the winger makes the movement forward. It gives a lot of space that a team can apply passes through into this area. The one thing England do have is that when they do feel a little bit exposed under Southgate, they do retreat well and cover the space in behind quickly when those areas get there. And the centre midfielders drop to create less space between defence and midfield. And it then just means if they can hold them off long enough that these guys can get back into their 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1 shape, then it stops danger from happening. And to his credit, Southgate, he always defends compact. He always keeps a really good low to mid block that prevents space from opening up in between the lines. And it's just about defending those wide areas when the ball goes there. The only issue is that when we get stuck down into shape, and this probably lost us the last year's final against Italy, is when we get stuck in shape, we don't hold on to it in transition well enough. I feel like we're always looking for that long punt forward. Now, we have a much better side technically than we did 3 years ago, so maybe that does change things, and we did play better football at the World Cup, even when we lost to France. But we have a tendency to get stuck in that defensive shape and stay there, and as a result, it means it's harder to break out, and when you're defending on the back foot for 90 minutes, it becomes a slog. And it's just whether we can evolve past that to be a bit more progressive when we break out, and we're not just constantly recycling and turning over possession back to the opposition that gives them chances to restart their attack. So there's many things to think about for Gareth Southgate in this England team. Am I looking forward to the Euros? No, I'm a little bit pessimistic, I will say. I always try to go the optimistic role. I don't have it in me. Lads, I'll be honest. I'm a little bit nervous. I also think those group stage games are a little bit tougher than people are giving credit for. Denmark are a tricky team. Serbia have some ballers. And in Slovenia, they have a fantastic shot-stopping international goalkeeper and a striker that's come into the tournament in red-hot form, that's got experience playing in a counter-attacking team. And they could easily frustrate us in that group stage game. I think we win, but it's got all the feelings of a slog. So it's gonna be a bit of a tough watch, those group stage games, I think, but we'll see. I'm gonna try and hopefully brighten up a bit once the tournament starts, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Cheers, lads. In a bit.